Welcome back to Fire Your Boss Fridays, the podcast that's all about seizing control of your destiny and embracing the rebel spirit within you. I'm Chad Passa, your guide through this journey, and right beside me is the embodiment of love and courage, Lisa Hart. You know the drill, people. We're here to fuel your inner fire and set you on a path to steal your life back, fire your boss, and live a life full of purpose. It's not just a mantra, it's a revolution. So thanks for joining us, everybody. Today, we're diving into a topic that hits really close to home for many of us, anxiety. So anxiety doesn't care if you're a successful entrepreneur, a stay-at-home mom, or a ditch digger. Right now, the world is being attacked by this silent killer. As I was scrolling through Facebook, I was moved by a post made by our next guest, Jose Bolaños. The post asked a novel question: is anxiety a state or a trait? I found it so intriguing, I invited Jose on the show right away to dive deep into the meaning of this and his perspective. Now, Lisa, I normally would have you introduce him right here, but Jose has decided he's going to help me pronounce some of these names. So when I get to him, can you do it for me? So here to help us in the hot seat, Jose Bolaños, a presence-based leadership coach, which we're going to get into that, a dynamic speaker, and the mastermind behind the Unbreakable Method. He has over 15 years of coaching and leadership experience. I think he's done this in over 14 countries. He's going to share his insight, and he's done this and shared the stage alongside Jesse Itzler.
Jesse
Is that
Itzler.
correct?
Yeah, Jesse Itzler.
Okay. Nick
Oh, that's a hard one. I can't see it, so
Valsisi.
I will go with you on this one, my friend.
All right. Well, Daymond John
He is
and
the
Kevin
speaker
Harrington.
without limbs, does not have arms.
Oh, I know exactly who you're talking about. One of our other up-and-coming guests helped him write one of his books, so that's awesome. So Jose's Unbreakable Method has impacted lives across several countries. So we got the real deal here in the house with this man. So listen up, people. Take out your notepads. Let's do this. So Jose, say hi to the listeners. Tell us how the Unbreakable Method that you created plays into the statement you posted online. Is anxiety a state or a trait?
Yeah. So hi to everyone listening, and it's an honor to be here, Chad. Thank you for inviting me. It's incredible how such a small comment can turn out to be an invitation and a conversation. And I'm super curious where this is going to go because there's so much to say about this small comment that I made. Is anxiety a trait or a state? It's a trick question. I guess we can jump into that.
Right, yeah.
It's a trick question. It's both. It's both a state and a trait. So I guess it would be worth making the distinction between a trait and a state, because it's not just anxiety. Anxiety
First off, yeah, let's identify that. Yeah.
Yeah. So anxiety is a it can be a state and it can be a trait. So there's a term, trait anxiety and state anxiety in psychology. So state anxiety. Okay. So I'm feeling a little anxiety right now coming on this call and making sure I do good and I look smart. And so there's a little performance anxiety coming with the invitation to a podcast. That's pretty normal. If I'm going to speak on stage, I get super anxious before I speak on stage. You know, I can feel the anxiety bursting out through my nerve endings. And so state anxiety is the anxiety we feel when it's congruent with context. Like you're in a situation where it's pretty normal to feel anxious. It's your body preparing you for whatever's coming. Usually you feel that it's a threat. So anxiety is like an energizing of ourselves in the face of a threat and preparing us. But a trait is a long-lasting, stable way of being, like a personality. It's like if I have anxiety as a trait, that means I'm anxious even when the context isn't, like it's not congruent. There's no threat. There's nothing happening, yet I have this anxiety, this feeling of anxiety. So that's the difference between a state and a trait.
Okay.
It's worth mentioning both can be worked, both can be changed. And that's the fascinating part of my work and where we can go with this.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, would you agree with us that it's literally killing people right now? It's like a silent killer.
Yes, stress and anxiety definitely kills. And there's
Kills dreams for one.
well, if it paralyzes you and you don't know how to manage it or work with it, or if it's overpowering you, definitely it kills dreams. I was just talking to a client yesterday where I've been working for her for a few months, almost a year, and she just signed up for a mastermind group, like a business coaching group. And she's like, "Oh my God, I
Hmm.
can be here now." Like before, I was so anxious that I didn't even want to sign up for these groups because I couldn't manage myself. I felt so scared, imposter syndrome. What are they thinking? Like the anxiety was so overwhelming that she couldn't even join one of these groups. The work
Hmm.
we've done, which has helped her not just become less anxious, but be able to work with it and be with it. Now she's like, now I can be here. Like I can feel it, I know it, and I can manage it. And it's not managing me. So there's a big difference between
Right.
managing it and me and it managing me.
Yeah, that would really lie in our steal your life back philosophy here. That's a big part of what we
Yeah,
teach as well, Jose. Steal your life back from these things that are taking control of you. Like you are the person experiencing all these things. Like you're supposed to be
yeah.
the one in control. Although some things do slip through the cracks, and some of them
Mhm.
you allow, right? You just like, oh, probably not a big deal. I'll just let this happen. Da, da, da. No, like you have got to be the one in control here of, in your the way you said it, your state. Now the trait's a much bigger play, but I think it's rooted in the same space, like somewhere deep in the psyche, and you might be able to help me, brother. But deeper down, there's some permanent thing that you haven't let go that it maybe did happen 10 years ago, but you're still holding on to the emotion. And we can hold on to emotions. Listeners, let me give you an example, just so you might be thinking, oh, I don't hold on to my emotions, da 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 da. I used to do this, and here's a perfect example. I remember thinking I had broken up with my girlfriend, and then I thought, well, I hadn't thought about it for months, and I thought, oh, I'm going to think about it for a minute. I literally thought about how bad it hurt months later and started getting emotional again. I literally invited the pain back purposely, consciously, said, hey, pain, come on back and make me feel like crap
Yeah.
again. And I literally took the time out to do that. But I didn't realize that that was a trait that I was taught as a young boy through my family heritage, was that you need to like feel this remorse and you should always revisit your past and that was a big awakening for me. But I really did invite it back, and I think people do
Yeah.
this all the time, is invite that back. And I think maybe you can elaborate on that, maybe an experience you had or a client you worked with, or even something you could offer, someone in that
Yeah.
situation where they're holding on to something like from way back, or re-inviting it to come back again
Well,
all the
that's
time.
one possibility. Me as a coach, as a coach, I don't go back as much. Like if I see somebody that needs to go back to attend things that they're holding on to, whether it's trauma or something that happened
Hmm.
to them, part of the coaching actions plan might be to work with a therapist and talk to a therapist as to why this is happening.
Okay. I
So
get it. Okay.
I want to know what they're committed to now in the present moment and what practices they need to
Mm.
engage with so they can embody that what they're committed to, whether it's joy or presence or
Hmm.
living with ease or performance. I want to know what you're committed to and how do we practice to embody that. If we find something that's really holding you back, that's in that therapeutic traumatic realm, then I would definitely recommend my client, like, hey, maybe, talking to a therapist might.
So that would be your advice
Yeah.
directly. Hey, you're going to need some bigger players on this
Oh,
team.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
I would never. Okay, let's go back and talk about your relationship with your father. Oh, that's. I don't go in that territory. But if we see that they want to explore
Right.
that,
That makes sense.
then
Hmm.
okay, it's worth exploring. But my approach is also. I'll give you an example. I have a client that was like, I need to understand why I cancel these client sales meetings. Like I keep on canceling them. So I really need to understand this. And I'm like, okay, but let's not spend our time trying to understand it. We can find a way to understand it, but how about we just make a rule? Like, you don't have permission to cancel any sales meeting from here until we meet again and just see what happens. Because if we spend too much time trying to figure out
Hmm.
why I'm doing this, I might never get to do it. So I need to figure out why I'm
Right.
so scared of, how about we take action, and in the action, because I believe in healing through commitment. I believe in healing through purpose. And I
Mm.
believe that when we are clear,
And that's one of your principles, I take it.
yes, when we are clear to what we're committed to, when I am committed to being, for example, I am the commitment, and we say, I am the commitment. It's an awkward way of declaring a commitment, but it means that it's something that I need to embody. So if I am the commitment to being a source of presence, strength, and transformation for others, then I have to figure out the work that I need to go through to actually embody that. So through my commitment, I will have to face my trauma, my fears, my
Mm.
insecurities. To be able to fulfill on it, I will have to, and I do talk to therapists, and I am in an AA 12-step. I'm in a 12-step recovery program for more than 20 years now. And so I'm constantly seeking ways so that I can overcome whatever limitation I find that keeps me from embodying that commitment. Right?
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So going back to, is it a state or a trait? Anxiety as a state or a trait? We can impact both. The state is easier. It can be almost immediate, and anybody might have access to that. So if I invite you right now to
Hmm.
smile, give me a smile,
Amen.
yeah,
There's this big smile. Look, you got both of us.
yeah, like get a little, like sit up a little straighter, breathe a little deeper, maybe put your hands up in
Hmm.
a champion's way. These,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Show some gun. Look at him. He's got some guns.
yeah. So we will immediately start laughing and start feeling better and start feeling happier.
Hmm.
So there's
Well
certain,
played. Well played.
yeah. So, or it could be music. It could be music. It
Hmm.
could be exercise. There's immediate interventions that we can use to change our state in the moment. And that is accessible to just about anybody. I can guide you or work with you or invite you to change your state by doing something, shifting your attention, shifting your breath, shifting your body, listening to some sort of
Hmm.
music, coffee, like, and that'll have an impact on your state. But I can't do that
Right.
with your trait. I can't just invite you to do this thing and have your trait change in
Sure.
the now. That takes repetition. That takes practice. That takes a little more intervention over time with intention, with strategic, conscious intention of what I want to embody. If I am present and aware and intentional and strategic, then I can over time start cultivating a certain trait. But we don't know if that's going to
You,
take a month, a year, 5 years, until
you know what
somebody
that makes
comes.
me think of?
What?
Like perception, right? You're saying it takes time. To change someone's perception can happen in an instant,
Yes.
but sometimes it can take time. They need an excuse for it to change, right? And sometimes the excuse is, oh, I need time. I need to work
Yeah.
on that, right? It could change immediately, but it's really depending on where you are in your journey. But perception can cause that. And tell me your feedback on that, on the trait element, the way you look at that particular thing. The perception is might be giving you the state, might be actually causing the state, but from a trait standpoint. Am I on track there? Is that what I'm understanding?
So we can change our traits, and there could be, like my mentor used to say, change sometimes can be immediate, and
Right.
sometimes it can be,
Which it does. People have these awakenings all the
yeah,
time. Maybe they get in a car accident, but it's always something that will like, whoa, like this is, I need to change. This is what we've gone too far.
yeah,
This is just trigger, right? And then they change. They're like, I'll never do this again. Yeah.
yeah. And then there are others like myself who had anger as a trait, managing my anger. And even though I would say I need to stop this, I kept on getting angry, and I'm like, oh my god,
It still would sneak back in,
this
right?
is harder than I thought. This is like, okay, this is really like this is really has me. This trait really has me. It's going to take a little bit more work. a little bit of self-observation, a little bit of self-regulation, a little bit of understanding where it comes from. So I do believe that
Mm-hmm.
we change at a psychological level, but I also believe in a physiological level too. Like there has to be embodiment.
Mm.
There's got to be, we need to be able to embody the new traits. And we do that through intentional practice to become an embodiment of those traits that we want to cultivate.
To become that thing, has to become you. Yeah, I love your analogy there. That's very well, maybe not even an analogy. Like you really do become it, physically become that thing. What's your
Yes.
take on that, Lise? You're nodding your head over there.
What's my take on it?
Yeah, you're well, the embodiment of whatever emotion, whether it be anger, anxiety. And for the listeners, the only reason we're playing around with this is because, these are the things more than likely that many of us are suffering from. And you're really completely mentally capable. You have all the skill sets, you have all these things in place, and this is your one roadblock that's just destroying the whole thing. So the reason I wanted to have this topic in depth with, different opinions is because hopefully something that is said here today will be that instant change or give you the hope, like through Jose's story, that like it does take time, but you got to get started. You have to start somewhere, right, to move through this journey. And I'm curious, Lise, you've never technically suffered from like extreme anxiety, but your sister did, your mom did, and they couldn't really quite overcome it, but you have. So you have this different kind of take or look at it. How, and you don't believe you never had anxiety, you just don't think that it owned you. You never had to be saved from it, right? Many of us are.
Right.
We need to be saved, and
Hmm.
that's the whole point of this. So what's your take on that?
Well, I think it's just a lot of it is, in how you're raised. But I mean, for me, I was able to discern the difference between, because there was kind of like this protocol of like, you should be anxious about this, or if somebody wasn't home on time, oh, aren't you worried? And for me, I was like, well, not necessarily, So it's just kind of like, I think knowing, yeah, just not thinking too far ahead on things.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that you said that it's kind of how you're raised also. I wasn't,
Right.
I for one wasn't raised for insight. I was raised for anger. Like we saw things with anger in my house, whether it was my
Hmm.
dad or my
Hmm.
mom. And like when
Wow.
things were going the way we wanted them to go, we didn't get worried. We got angry. We forced
They
ourselves.
call that the iron fist, right? Yeah.
Yes. So I didn't learn to worry about stuff in that way. But I think it does start with so I don't believe in healing for the sake of healing or mental health for the
Mm.
sake of mental health or recovery for the sake of recovery, even though it can begin that way, even though healing, recovery, transformation can begin because you want to stop suffering. It can start because you want to avoid suffering. But at some point, to get to the next level, to get to the highest level possible, I believe it has to be connected to a purpose. So healing,
Yeah. And
recovery,
that's why you put that goal or that embodiment out there that you talked about earlier. Is that
the
part of
commitment,
that?
the commitment.
Yeah, the commitment. That's what I meant to say. That's why you're saying embody that commitment, because that's the thing. And that's where you're at right now. That's what you believe in.
Yes. So at one point, it's I'm recovering. I started recovering from my addiction and treating my anger. But if I want to go further, I need to uh, see what my purpose is in life, commit to that purpose, commit to service of others. But
Mm.
go back to, for example, Buddhism. Buddhism. The basic premise of Buddhism is there is suffering. That's like if this was a business pitch of Buddhism, that's like the problem. Like
Mhm.
give me the
Right.
problem is there is suffering. Then there's a path to ease suffering. And so here's a solution. Here's the solution to the problem. There's a path to ease suffering. And you're going to ease your own suffering for the sake of easing other people's suffering. So when I connect that need to, work my own anxiety, my own mental health issues, or my own insecurities, working on myself, but for the sake of being a resource for others, it really helps raise the bar on the work we need to do. Like I believe
Mm. Yeah.
I'm not a I'm not a wellness coach. I'm not a feel good coach. I'm a warrior the f up coach. Like you got a purpose, you got a commitment. You better train yourself up and be as strong as you can. And that's why have in Unbreakable, which I am now calling the VUCA Fit method. So, what is VUCA?
Okay.
VUCA is an acronym coined by the US military that stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. We live in a VUCA world. We need to be VUCA fit. We need to be capable of whatever life throws at us. The only way we can do that is to train. The only way to do that is to train like a warrior or an athlete. There are no shortcuts. So the Unbreakable.
Is this where the ice baths come in?
That's exactly where the ice baths come in. See, the VUCA Fit method or Unbreakable, the premise is okay, I have this window of tolerance towards whatever life throws at me, and I can expand it, and I can become stronger, more stable, more present, more purposeful. But that only comes through training. And so we train using certain instruments and certain vehicles. And those, bottom line, the key instruments to change your state and cultivate your traits is your attention, your breath, and your body. These are the three instruments that we start using consciously, building awareness of them. So if I shift my attention, Chad, you talked about if I'm thinking about this girl that left me in the past and I'm reliving it, all you're doing is giving attention to it. And by giving attention to it, you're reliving it. If I can learn to shift my attention in another direction, then my state will shift also. So energy follows attention. So we do a lot of mindfulness practices and learning how to regulate and control our attention. But if I breathe different, my daughter came into that room.
So controlling the mind, essentially.
Yeah, the only way to control the mind is controlling your attention. There is no mind to control. Does that make sense?
So Carl Jung said anxiety is not a constant companion. It's a shadow that shifts with the angle of your thoughts.
There you go. Yeah.
So you are saying shift your angle of your thoughts, same as Carl Jung. Then you're literally the pilot of everything that's going on, but with your intention.
Well, with your intent, exactly. Beautiful. Well, you said at the beginning, we need to take control. But if I would finish that phrase, is we need to take control of the system, and we are the system. And how do we take control of the system? Is
interesting.
In my understanding, what I've come to conclude is that we take control of this system through shifting attention, shifting breath, and shifting body.
So what does that look like exactly?
Like I was going to say the same thing, Lise. Yeah.
yeah. Is that kind of, because I saw something on your Facebook about the 22 days, you have some different things, which includes the ice baths, which that obviously stood out to me because I can't stand that thought.
Okay. So what's the question exactly, Lisa?
Is there a protocol? Like what does it look like to shift my attention and work on my breath and my body? Is that kind of the 22-day plan?
So when we talk about attention, we talk everything mindfulness. So doing mindfulness practices, which I call attention training exercises or attention training meditation. It's basically, I meditate not to feel better. I meditate to train my attention. It's a muscle. You can actually train it up. With a basic mindfulness practice of attention management, you can build the muscles that are required to shift your attention. So first, I got to be aware that my attention is indulging in something that's not making me feel good, that's having a negative impact. Second, I need to be able to disengage my attention from that. And that's a muscle. Like letting go of something and not obsessing over it is actually a capacity. And then redirecting choicefully, what I want to focus on is another muscle. And choosing what I'm going to focus on in a way that it actually is positive and it's going to help me. And if I do that right now, I can change my state. If I do that over time, I change my trait. I stop thinking about negative things. I actually start turning my mind into my ally. Over time, my mind is my ally. It doesn't go to negative places because I've been bringing it back and shifting it constantly. So it's a muscle we can actually, we can build that muscle. And with time, with neuroplasticity, our brain starts getting shaped differently. So they say the attention is the scalpel for your brain. Attention is the scalpel for your mind. You're actually rewiring. You're actually doing some brain surgery through shifting your attention constantly and intentionally and with focus and with intention. Over time, it literally just starts becoming that way.
And you've seen this through personal experience. Just so you know, I totally 100% back you on this, and I've seen it through my own life too. But can I throw a monkey wrench in here? That's super thought provoking. So I think now might be the time to put this. Have you ever considered that the anxiety itself could be a messenger rather than an obstacle? Because we're talking about it as an obstacle here today, right? Like, hey, let's get past this. Here's this thing. It's this. Let's get over it. Break it apart, or whatever the thing is. We're treating it like an obstacle.
Beautiful.
What if it's a messenger?
Beautiful.
Sending you something.
So I'm a surfer. I surf, and when the waves are big, I get scared. I get anxious. So what I've heard is fear without breath becomes panic. Fear with breath becomes exhilaration. So I can turn my anxiety into this source of good. And I'll give you a perfect example of this. When I speak on stage, and most people that speak on stage and are scared to speak on stage, they'll tell me, how can I get over my anxiety? How can I get rid of it? How can I calm down when I'm going to speak? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, let's not do that. Let's warrior up. Like, so if you look at somebody like Anthony Robbins before he goes on stage, what's he doing? He's jumping on a trampoline. He's pounding these sticks and he's pumping. He's using that energy and he's going with it. Like, your anxiety is there because it's preparing you for whatever's coming. And to try to bring it down is like you're fighting against what could potentially be a source of usefulness, of good.
Mm-hmm. So right, channeling, you're kind of alchemy or something, right? Channeling that energy.
Yes. So if I'm going to speak on stage, I want to find the space where I can actually jump up and down, shake my hands, go up and down, like breathe into it until I can get
like
this.
You had us earlier, had our arms in the air. Yeah, same kind of thing.
So I don't want to be sitting on a chair like, oh, calm down. Okay, relax. Like, calm down. No, I want like a space where I can maybe like get into this. Like, if you look at sports players, they're not calming down. Like, I see sports players jumping around. They're pumping up the music. They're even pumping that energy up until it becomes exhilaration and it becomes something good instead of repressing it. So that's anxiety in your favor.
Would that be a definition of embodiment?
Well, embodiment is
would it be?
Well, you'd be embodying exhilaration. You'd be embodying excitement. That's what you would be embodying in the moment. It would become like, yeah, I'm ready for this. Like, let's go. Versus trying to calm down. Now, when I am anxious because we have psychological things going on, we have threats. We have threats that are, we got to pay bills. We got clients that we can lose. We got real life VUCA. That's not a bear that's going to kill me or a tiger that's going to kill me. But it's that level of fear that I feel because I feel, am I going to die? Am I going to survive? Or my kid's going to live?
Well, your whole life's coming in on you, yeah.
Yeah, so the level of fear or the level of anxiety is, sometimes I say, if the level of anxiety that you're feeling is that a bear is going to kill you, then your best medicine, in my opinion, is exercise. And I tell people, go kill a fucking bear. Like, go to the gym.
Well, one or the other, and which one are they going to choose, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So like I had a client who was super anxious about something, and I'm like, did you already go do something physical? He's like, yeah, I went for a walk. And I'm like, you're not fighting a squirrel here, my friend. You're fighting a bear. So if you want to get all that energy down, if you want to use all that energy that's been accumulated in your system, like, go use it, go deplete it, because it's not real. It's an illusion. It's not really a bear, but you need to go fight a bear because that's what your body feels that you need to do. Yeah. So I'll go to the gym and lift and I'll go and I'll charge or some strong yoga, but you want to meet that anxiety with a congruent response to it. Does that make sense?
I don't want to get into, it makes a lot of sense. I don't want to get into the drug part of this, but you're saying everything that you do is anti-drug, right? Like, you're talking about all natural solutions that you practice within your own life that you've seen work for you.
Well, I'm sober, so I had to find ways. Listen to this. I've heard that people who don't drink sometimes die earlier than people that drink, but not drink a lot. Like I'm not talking about like they excessively drink, but people who take a wine, like they drink a
Sure.
little wine and they relax and they're like they live a little longer than those that don't use anything. And I think it's because of anxiety and stress, and they're bottling it up.
Interesting. Well, possibly, and I think I seen a study like that once before. I
So
was reading about it. I know I looked into it.
so I have my own set of tools that so that I don't have to so that I can manage my stress and my anxiety.
Like a similar kind of
So my medicine.
stress reliever kind of yeah, it's your medicine.
It's my
Lise,
medicine.
you believe in exercise is one of the best things for your mind too, physically, but
Absolutely,
even
yeah.
mentally. Like, yeah, you are always saying to me like, oh yeah, I got to go to the gym just so I can get my bearings straight mentally. Like,
100%.
she
Yes.
feels like it's almost more about her mental stability than her physical at times.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the best way to start a morning.
Yeah. So I go and deplete myself every day at the gym, and my anxiety is down, and I also use other vehicles, and I've separate. So again, the three instruments: attention, breath, shifting your breath. Like the way you breathe is very.
Breath, yeah.
This is very core, even more than mind. Every mind body state has a breathing pattern to it.
I think I know where you're going with this. Dive in, Jose. I want to hear it.
So every breathing pattern produces a mind body state.
They're interconnected, even though you don't think they are, but they are.
Yeah. So how you feel your state's going to produce a way of breathing, but if you can override that and take control of your breath, you're going to produce a different way of feeling. This is why I'm so deep into breath.
Right. It's like
Also,
a hack, right?
it's like a hack, but it's the same thing with your attention. You shift your attention, it'll shift your state. You shift your breath, you'll shift your state. You shift your body, you'll shift your state. If you do all
hmm
three, then you're a master of the system.
Yeah. Jedi warrior, we call them, right?
Jedi warrior. So by, by
Right.
shifting our
You
breath,
you you finally become the Jedi. Yeah.
sometimes you can start shifting your state by just dropping your shoulders, smiling a little, and just relaxing the body. You can do a lot through the body. Shift your mind, and that'll come a little more deeper. Shift your breath, and then you're fully in a different place. Do that over time, and you will cultivate different traits. And what I've been taught is to cultivate this baseline, grounded, centered state. We want it to be the baseline. So being grounded and centered is the baseline that we want to come to multiple times a day. We want to get grounded and centered, grounded and centered, grounded and centered. That's how I start all my coaching sessions. We first get grounded and centered. Why? Because then this starts becoming a trait. I become like there's no better response like
hmm
feedback than when people tell me, "Man, you are so calm and centered. Like you have this groundedness." And I'm like, "Man, that's you have no idea how long I've been working on that and who I was 10 years ago." So for you to tell me that today, that's how I'm showing up. It's like,
Right.
okay, this is like it's evident. So we have this grounded, centered state that we can come to understand and experience and know how it feels and what it means to come back to. And I can come back to it at will, like at will, so that
hmm
when we're off that state, we can see it immediately because we're off that baseline. So
Right.
some people live in off baseline anxiety. As soon as they're out of bed, they're already anxious. That's their baseline.
Sure. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we want to bring that
But
baseline
they
down
don't
to
know
they don't.
they don't know these other places exist. They've never even visited them part time or one time.
Yeah.
They've never even visited baseline,
They
It
don't,
will or this centered place.
we don't
I know I'm saying this when I say they, I'm talking about me, Jose. Like I didn't it took me a long time just like you. I think it's awesome that you're telling this story the way you are.
yeah.
It's resonating with me and you're getting me all excited because
Yeah.
it's solid information for transformation.
Yeah.
do you have a lot of skeptics? Because I know, for example, Chad mentioned my sister and my mom both had bad anxiety, right? And they would like if they were talking to you and you said, you know, your attention and your breath and your body, they would just look at you and be like, it's not that easy.
Witchcraft.
Yeah. So do you find that people are often skeptical? And if so, how do you deal with that?
So I pride myself in being able to bridge these practices to a very particular type of person or business leader that probably doesn't, that would be skeptical. So I
Mm-hmm.
try to have a no BS approach, have scientific data. Like I'm a big fan of Andrew Huberman. I am a big fan of science. I don't bring any philosophy to my work. I bring only the practices. And I try to introduce these practices through resources that my clients won't have any antibodies to, like they won't react to them or have any rejection to them because, oh no, this guy's trying to sell me on this or that. In Spanish, when I coach in Spanish,
Snake oil or something.
yeah, snake oil or so, exactly. Like there's no way to debate it. Here are the numbers. Here's the science test telling you what attention management is. So I don't say we're going to meditate. I say we're going to train our attention.
Okay. So terminology,
Yeah.
perception of what we're doing. Yeah. Okay. Great. Because so it sounds to me like that is something you combat because Lisa's saying something that you have dealt with and this is your system.
Well,
Is that what I'm hearing?
I've trained with people that, he wrote an ebook, Mark Walsh. He's big in embodiment. One of my, I guess, heroes, not heroes, but top guys that I follow in embodiment. He wrote a book like Facilitation Without Being a Effing Hippie. It's kind of a joke. Like, how do you facilitate these things without showing this way? So you can sell it. So you won't have, like, how not show up like a hippie at the company. And like, I've read this stuff. I've really practiced being able to deliver these without provoking any antibodies to it. Because I myself have always said that I am Thomas, the disciple. And I don't know if you guys know what Thomas was famous for. Thomas was famous for.
I don't.
No, you lay it on us and tell our listeners, bring us up to speed.
Thomas was famous, recognized for doubt. And he said, I will not believe that Jesus has risen until I stick my two fingers in the wounds. And only if I stick my two fingers in the wounds will I believe that he is really risen. I am St. Thomas, not one of he's a saint. I am Thomas in regards to all my work. Like, I will not believe what you're saying until I have the evidence that what you're saying is true, whether it's meditation or ice baths or breathing or any of this work.
Well, or your own personal experience and growth through that, right? That's a big part of it as well.
Yeah. So going back, shifting breath, body, and attention. Like if you smile, you feel a little different, but also using stress to fight stress. This is where the ice baths come in. So there's this, I teach and I was taught 7 stressors that we use for the sake of building our ability to manage stress. So we are going to consciously stress ourselves to build capacity. So we use ice baths.
Well, most exercise is that way, is it not? It's similar. You're stressing yourself to larger and larger capacity in all levels.
Yes. So there's this concept called hormesis, which is that we go through positive adaptations when we expose ourselves to stressors or to toxins. So we have 7 stressors, and I'll share them with you. One of them is ice baths. Start taking 2-minute cold showers a day. That's going to build your capacity to manage stress. Fasting, like going through long periods of fasts and caloric deficit, like no caloric intake. Heat exposure, so going for a good sauna session up to your edge. Exercise, whether it's strength or resistance. Overbreathing, so Wim Hof style overbreathing, superventilation breathing, like that is anxiety provoking. I mean, that's the breathing pattern of anxiety, is over breathing. So learning how to harness that for yourself, taking control of that and exploring with that yourself, and under breathing. So not breathing, breath holds, never underwater, never, ever, ever underwater. I always have to say that. But breath holding and CO2 tolerance. Your CO2 tolerance, and we're going to get technical here, your CO2 tolerance, which is how well your system tolerates the increasing amount of CO2 without panicking, is correlated to your ability to manage stress and anxiety. And that to me is freaking fascinating.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's powerful, really powerful. And you're pushing that threshold constantly, right? And you're playing with that a little bit. I think it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So using these 7 stressors, we are hacking our system through these vehicles and actually building our stress and anxiety capacity strategically. So we're not just doing them to do them, we're doing them with intention, because I want to warrior up. Like I'm getting in the ice, I'm lifting weights, I'm holding my breath, I'm over breathing, I'm doing fasting, I'm getting in the sauna, not to relax and for feel good wellness. It's to warrior up, to be stronger, to be more stable, to be more present, to control my system.
So how does this all play into being an entrepreneur, Jose, or a leader, which is basically who you train? Like you're building leadership here, and you're doing that because the leader ultimately has to be stronger on all these capacities. You don't just get to be the leader, right? You have to have these capacities, I believe, to lead other people, and you owe it to your people, so to speak, right, that you're serving as their leader, to be at the best capacity possible. How does that play into like entrepreneurship, do you think, directly? Like in short, because we're running out of time here, we're certainly going to have you back, dude, so don't worry about it. But in short, how does that translate over to our entrepreneurs listening right now?
Well, I like to say that I work with business leaders so that they can expand their capacity to manage their full catastrophe, being stronger, more stable, more present, with more purpose. So, what is the full catastrophe? The full catastrophe, there is a movie, Zorba the Greek, and they ask Zorba, "Are you married?" And Zorba answers, "Am I not a man? And is man not stupid? Of course I'm married. I got the wife, I got the kids, I got the work, the full catastrophe." So we all have our full catastrophe.
I got you. Okay. Well, so you've signed up for what the world presents. Okay, so you're signed up. Yeah. Okay.
You're fully in. My clients, my sweet spot of clients is guys who have a full catastrophe. Like if you bring me somebody that hasn't, like a university student who still hasn't created his full catastrophe, I'll serve them. I'll be valuable, but not as valuable as that guy that's like has no, like, zero choice. Like, I got to make this work. I got the kids. I got the dog.
And he went into battle without being prepared. Yeah.
They're engaged in the full catastrophe. So I bring this premise that, okay, there's training, there's tactical training like breath, mind, body, stressors, practices, and I teach them that and how to start choosing their own. So I like to say we do some of these sometimes, and we do some of these all of the time. What does that mean? It means that I'm not going to take a cold shower every day. I'm in Nicaragua, FYI. I'm in Central America.
Right.
My clients are in the U.S., but there's no cold water showers here in Nicaragua. This is tropical. It's lukewarm at best.
Right.
So if I want ice baths, I got to create them, and that takes a lot of time and money and effort and preparation. So I don't got ice every day.
Sure.
But I can fast every day. I can work out every day. I can overbreathe every day. I can hold my breath every day. So I do.
Yeah, and I've been following you for quite some time, dude, and you push yourself all the time. Yeah. I think it's amazing.
So I help them understand why, for the sake of what, like we declare their commitment, their purpose, what they're committed to, and that's for the sake of this. For the sake of this, you're going to do this. For the sake of your purpose and your commitment,
gotcha. You're identifying their dreams, so to speak.
Your dream, your purpose, your commitment, whatever's important to you. But that's why we're doing this. We're not doing this so you can feel better and not for the sake of doing it for it. No. And then I also introduced certain frameworks, which we're not going to get into, but there's sense-making frameworks, like managing dichotomies,
Mm-hmm.
polarities, complexity, seeing life through different frameworks and make sense of different things. Like VUCA would be a framework. It's like, oh, the full catastrophe VUCA is a framework that helps you make sense. Like life is VUCA. Okay, I get it. This isn't just happening to
Mm-hmm.
me. No, it's happening to everybody. We all got VUCA. So okay, that's normal. Yes. Okay. Now you got to
Gotcha.
prepare for it. You got to warrior up. This is how you're going to prepare. We need to build your capacity physiologically, psychologically, spiritually. So we want them to expand their ability to manage that full catastrophe. And my clients, like that one client that said I couldn't sit in this mastermind, and now I can sit here. That's what I. That's the evidence. That's the result. It's like before I would have lost it,
Mm-hmm.
but today I'm not losing it. What would have affected me for a week is no longer affecting me just for a moment. Or what would overwhelm me, now I get it. It's not overwhelming me anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that's awesome, man. Seriously, people, it's interesting because it's not easy to transform yourself. It's not easy to be a coach. It's not an easy journey, but it's always worth it. Always, always, always. Just you've got to do the work. I know personally, I had to do the work. It wasn't easy. I actually didn't think I was going to be able to do it, but I did follow the lead of some of my mentors. And thankfully, people have beat down this path before me. Luckily, I did not have to do all of it trial and error. And that's what people like Jose are here to do is just, you're only just asking for guidance to get there faster. Could you get there on your own? Absolutely. But maybe you don't have the time. And time is of the essence, people, because we're trying to steal back our life first and foremost. And I think that's what this episode embodies the most is stealing back your life because that really is getting control of your space. This is the life that you're living. And you want the best version of that possible, not tomorrow, today. So the sooner the better. The ultimate kind of challenge for all of us is when do we start? When are we ready to embody, as Jose said, the best version of ourselves, right? And that being the goal. That's what we're going to go after. So, Lisa, did you want to add anything before I close out the show today?
I think my only other question would be if someone works with you, how long till they see results?
So when I work with somebody, it's
Woo!
interesting, very interesting question. Like I will tell people I want to work with me, commit to 3 months of work with me. And we will see a better understanding. You'll know what it takes. You'll be empowered. You'll be able to do a lot of the work on your own. You'll get results, and we will start turning the wheel in the right direction, and you'll know how. That said, afterwards, you decide how much you want to continue working. And my clients have been with me for 2 years, a year, since I started opening it up to let them choose. And some of the clients that I'm having 2 years conversations
Mm-hmm.
with are some of the most phenomenal conversations I've ever had with clients. So it just speaks into how deep we can go into this kind of process. But at minimum 3 months and maximum
That's
ongoing.
awesome.
Yeah,
I think that's a great
yeah.
offer, man.
So, and just what Chad was saying there, when are you ready to commit? And for me, commitment is saying, enough of this shit. I'm done with this. I'm going to start focusing on this. That's it. It's an
Fire
end
it.
point and a beginning. It's
Nice.
enough of this. Let's get this done. So when you're ready to commit, that's when the work begins.
And I think ultimately, this is something I would say, people, if you're listening right now, why we brought this to your attention is because if you're thinking about stealing your life back, firing your boss, and living a life full of
Love that.
purpose, I believe this is where it starts. Before you fire your boss, technically, my opinion, I know Jose works with business professionals, but if you got your life in order first, you wouldn't have to walk into a catastrophe, Jose. Am I right?
I think so. You wouldn't have to walk. You'd be able to. You'd be ready for it. You'd be prepared for that catastrophe. You'd be able to.
You'd be able to navigate this battlefield,
The
right?
catastrophe is beautiful. It's beautiful. My catastrophe is beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, I know you like playing around in that space. That's your playground, basically. So you're fine with it. You're like, let's go
Oh,
play in any catastrophe. That is so enlightening that you're not fearful of that. That's beautiful.
not fearful of it at all. I love it. It's not that
That's
I love the
amazing.
chaos, but my three dogs, my two children, my 16-year-old daughter, my wife, yeah, it's amazing. So warrior up.
Well, I'm going to close out this show, brother, only because we're low on time. But man, what a heavy topic to squish into an hour's worth of time. But you did a fantastic job of helping our listeners understand the state and the trait. I understand it better. I'm glad you had an amazing opinion. You have principles and you have some real tactics that people can apply. So there you have it, Rebels. Another insightful episode of Fire Your Boss Fridays. Jose, your wisdom and insight has been a true beacon in exploring this state or trait of anxiety. To our amazing listeners, your engagement and energy fuel the journey of self-discovery and transformation. And this episode has really dove deep into the transformation part of it and maybe a little bit of the self-discovery. But remember, as we've seen today with Jose, the power of the breath over the mind can conquer anxiety's grip. And the first steps in understanding its dynamics are to play around with it, toy with it. It's not witchcraft. It's a real thing. Get out there, test it on yourselves, watch a video on YouTube, play with it for a little bit. If you like the response, who knows where it can take you. So Rebels, until next time, keep the rebel spirit burning bright, choose your responses mindfully, and continue on the path to reclaim your life, fire your boss, and live a life full of purpose. See you all in 7 days for more ways to empower your entrepreneur spirit. So I'm sitting here off the cuff chatting with Jose about the episode and how well it went off. This is bonus footage, guys. He just dropped it on me. I don't know why he didn't mention it before, but he has a retreat coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about it? Because we're going to post it in the link below as well. So if you guys want to check it out in detail, but give me just a brief little bonus comment on this. I'd love to share with the audience.
December 6th through 10th in Nicaragua, in Central America, we're going to have an unbreakable retreat, an immersive retreat to learn the principles of Unbreakable and the VUCA Fit method. But we're going to do it all with nature as our classroom. So we're going to be doing introduction to free diving. We are going to be having surf lessons, ice baths, hiking in volcanoes, a bit of culture. You'll get to understand the Nicaraguan culture, which is a very fascinating country. But it's all going to be framed with your commitment for the sake of why are you here? For the sake of what are you here doing this work? And we'll train our breath and our attention and our body and just go have deep conversations. It's
Right.
going to be
Just like this one, man. Yeah. And there's going to be other great people there. I'm sure just the company in itself in a retreat like this will be amazing. So, dude, thanks for sharing that. I'm glad we got this bonus info out of you. This is great.
Thank you.
We'll got the link below, guys. Check it out. But anyway, thanks for joining us again. Jose, I got to run. You've been fantastic, man. We're going to see you again. I'll always keep following you online, and you'll see me commenting below on all your posts. You're a badass. Keep it up, man.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you much.